Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I have a good one for you today, so let's get into it. The starship Avalon, operated by the Homestead Company, is transporting over 5,000 colonists, along with 238 crew members to the planet Homestead 2. This journey takes 120 years and is part of a mass exodus from Earth due to ecological devastation and the collapse of the biosphere. Both the colonists and crew are in hibernation pods. However, as the ship navigates through a large asteroid field, the energy shield, automatically directed to protect against the asteroid barrage, becomes heavily strained. This malfunction occurs when a large piece of debris penetrates the energy shield and collides with an unknown section of the ship, causing one passenger, mechanical engineer Jim Preston, to awaken 90 years earlier than his scheduled time. The passengers were scheduled to awaken during the final approach to the planet, just 4 months before reaching their destination. However, after a day, Jim realizes that he is the only one awake on the entire ship, and that he has woken up too soon. All functions of the ship are controlled by ID badges, and Jim's badge is that of a low-level worker, granting him access to very few areas of the ship. Even his daily meals are determined by his seniority. He is unable to access the bridge because it requires special authorization. Any messages to Earth would take 19 years to reach their destination, and the earliest response would not be expected for another 55 years. Additionally, Jim cannot return to hibernation. He finds the engineering manual for the hibernation pod and attempts to fix it. Jim also tries to break into the bridge, but the entry door is heavily fortified. After a year of isolation, which he spends time playing video games, dance-off, basketball, spending time in a luxury suite of the ship, with no company except Arthur, an android bartender, Jim contemplates suicide by opening the space dock airlock without having his spacesuit on, but cannot bring himself to do it. One day, Jim notices the beautiful Aurora Lane in her pod. Her video profile reveals that she is a writer with a humorous personality. After struggling with the morality of manually reviving Aurora for companionship, something Jim discusses with Arthur, he ultimately decides to awaken her, claiming that her pod has malfunctioned like his. Aurora soon realizes that Jim has been awake for over a year, as he explains all the things he has done to rectify his situation. Aurora, devastated by the thought of growing old and dying before the ship reaches Homestead 2, makes a futile attempt to re-enter hibernation, similar to what Jim had previously tried. Eventually, she comes to terms with her situation and begins writing a book about her experiences. As they spend time together, Jim and Aurora grow closer and become lovers. Jim starts doing everything with her that he used to do alone, playing video games, having dance-offs, playing basketball, going on dinner dates, and enjoying movies. They share many enjoyable moments on the ship and even embark on space excursions together. Aurora, being a gold-class passenger, has access to numerous amenities and far superior menu options in the cafeteria compared to what Jim had access to, including better coffee and a swimming pool. She mentions that colony planets are a lucrative business and that the Homestead Company made $8 quadrillion from its first colony planet. Additionally, the Homestead Company takes 20% off everything a colonist earns over their lifetime on the new planet. Over the next year, Jim and Aurora fall in love. Just as Jim plans to propose to her, he inadvertently allows Arthur to reveal his secret. Aurora is devastated, going through phases of berating, shunning, and even physically attacking Jim. Meanwhile, the ship begins to experience increasing malfunctions. At first thought, these issues are barely noticeable, but one day, Aurora becomes trapped underwater in the swimming pool due to a loss of gravity. She narrowly escapes death when gravity is restored just in time. Soon after this incident, another pod failure occurs, awakening Gus, the chief deck officer. Using Gus's personnel code, the group accesses the ship's bridge, a location Jim had previously attempted to breach without success. Upon inspection, they discover multiple cascading failures throughout the ship's systems. However, the computer does not provide any information about the underlying cause. If these issues are left unresolved, the ship will inevitably fail, putting the lives of both passengers and crew at risk. Gus realizes that Jim inadvertently awoke Aurora when he checked all 3 pods to understand their malfunction. Aurora continues to blame Jim for stealing her life, equating his actions to murder. Although Gus does not condone Jim's behavior, he empathizes with Aurora's emotions and explains that a drowning man, referring to Jim's suicidal tendencies, will grab onto any lifeline he can find. When Gus falls critically ill, the ship's automated medical suite, known as the Autodoc, diagnoses him with pansystemic necrosis, a condition resulting in progressive organ failure. He is given only hours to live. Gus believes his illness is due to multiple failures of his hibernation pod. Before he dies, he gives Jim and Aurora his ID badge and employee code, allowing them to access crew-only areas so they can attempt to repair the ship. Jim and Aurora discover hull breaches caused by an asteroid collision that occurred 2 years earlier. They find a hole in the ship near the fusion reactor. The computer module that controls the ship's fusion reactor power plant has been critically damaged due to the asteroid strike, leading to cascading malfunctions as other systems diverted their computing power to try to maintain operation. After replacing the damaged module, the computer attempts to vent the reactor to extinguish a runaway plasma reaction. However, the exterior vent fails. To resolve the situation, Jim is forced to spacewalk and manually vent the plasma from outside, using the controls located in the vent tube. Jim realizes that he must stay in the tube to keep the vent open, while Aurora initiates the venting process from inside the ship. In a moment of vulnerability, she reveals her deep feelings for him, expressing her fear of losing him and being left alone. Jim improvises a heat shield to survive the venting, but he is ultimately ejected into space when his tether snaps, causing his damaged spacesuit to begin losing oxygen. Aurora manages to retrieve Jim, who is clinically dead, from space and successfully resuscitates him using the Autodoc. With the reactor repaired, the Avalon returns to normal operations. After burying Gus in space, Jim discovers that the Autodoc can serve as a hibernation pod for 1 person. He insists that Aurora use it for the remainder of their voyage. However, realizing she would never see Jim again if she chose to hibernate, she decides to stay awake with him. He then presents her with a makeshift engagement ring he created earlier, which she accepts. 88 years later, the ship's passengers and crew awaken on schedule, shortly before arrival at Homestead 2. In the ship's grand concourse, they discover a huge tree with trailing vines, lush vegetation, flying birds, and a small cabin. A recording of Aurora's story describes the wonderful life she and Jim shared on the Avalon.